All right, let's jump right in. We're going to travel back in time for this one, all the way to San Francisco in 1968. We're breaking down a really profound philosophical lecture given by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And he's tackling some of the biggest questions out there. What's our time really worth? And what's the whole point of our lives anyway? So the lecture kicks off with this idea that's, well, it's so simple, but it just hits you, right? Just think about it for a second. Once a moment is gone, it is truly gone forever. You could offer all the money in the world, and you can't get it back. This immediately sets the tone for everything else. Every single second we have is literally priceless. So building on that powerful opening, the first big takeaway from this talk is this whole idea of time you can't get back. The speaker is really framing time as our most valuable, non-renewable resource. And because of that, how we spend it is probably the most important decision we ever make. And this is where a real sense of urgency comes in. He really pushes back on that common idea that, we'll get around to the big spiritual questions when we're older, when we retire. He's arguing that the mission of a human life is so critical, we need to be on it from day one, because every moment we waste is a loss we can never, ever get back. So, that leads to the next big idea, the rarest form of life. I mean, if our time is that valuable, what makes this particular life, our human life, such a golden opportunity? The answer, at least according to this framework, is that our existence right now is unbelievably rare. And that rarity is summed up in this one number, 8.4 million. According to this teaching, the soul, the life force itself, has to journey through a massive cycle of reincarnation, and that cycle involves 8,400,000 different kinds of bodies. And this chart here really puts that number into perspective. You can see the whole cycle includes millions of different life forms. You've got aquatic life, plants, insects, animals, and then, look at that. That tiny, tiny sliver right there is human life. So from this viewpoint, being born human isn't just a given. It's an incredibly rare shot, a precious opportunity. So what is that opportunity? Well, the speaker points out that we share a lot with animals, right? The basics, eating, sleeping, mating, defending ourselves. But the human form, that's the only one that's really built for something more. It's designed for spiritual inquiry, for asking these massive questions. Who am I? Where did I come from, and where am I supposed to go from here? But that brings up a pretty obvious question, doesn't it? If being human is this amazing once-in-a-blue-moon opportunity, why do we get so distracted? Why do we waste so much time? Well, the lecture's third major point offers a really interesting answer. It's because of a divine connection that we've all temporarily forgotten. At the very core of this teaching is the concept of the soul, which is called the jiva. Now, the key idea here is that the soul isn't seen as something totally separate from the divine. It's actually described as an eternal, conscious, little piece of the Supreme. So that connection to the divine, it's literally part of our DNA, so to speak. And to help us get our heads around this, he uses a beautiful analogy. He says the individual soul is like a single drop of ocean water. Now, obviously, it's tiny compared to the whole ocean, but its chemical makeup, its quality, is exactly the same. So in the same way, the soul shares those same spiritual qualities as the Supreme. Okay, so what about that forgetfulness we talked about? Well, there's another great analogy for that. It's like a small cloud covering up the sun. From down here on the ground, it might look like the sun is gone. But of course it's not. It's still there, just as bright as ever. The cloud is just a temporary thing. And in the same way, our spiritual connection is never actually broken. It's just obscured for a little while. All right, so if the connection is just covered up, how do you pull back the clouds? The fourth section of the lecture gives us a path to do exactly that. It's a practice all about perfecting love, so we can remember who we really are. And this is a really crucial point. This isn't being presented as, here, adopt this new foreign belief system. Not at all. It's described as a process of waking something up that's already inside every single one of us, an eternal, natural love for the divine that's just been covered up for a while. Now, to make this idea of perfect love a little more real, he gives the example of the gopis, these cowherd girls from a village. Their love was so all-consuming that they were constantly thinking of Krishna, even while they were just doing their normal, everyday chores. It wasn't some formal ritual. It was a state of constant, loving remembrance. And that is held up as the ultimate goal. So all of this, the value of our time, the rarity of human life, our forgotten connection, it all funnels down to one final and maybe the most important point of the whole lecture. At the end of the day, it's about an eternal choice that every single one of us has to make. And these are the two paths he lays out. Path number one is to misuse our independence. In this framework, that means staying tangled up in the material world, just continuing on in that big cycle of reincarnation. But then there's path number two, making proper use of our independence by choosing a spiritual life. And the outcome of that choice, he says, is an eternal life, totally free from all suffering. So after breaking all this down, we end up right back where we started. But now the question is aimed directly at us. If every moment we have is truly an irreplaceable treasure, how are we using ours? What's the ultimate purpose of our time?